On a cold December night in 2017, Tasha Bentley awoke from her sleep and quietly walked to the weapon cabinet in her home in Campbellsburg, Kentucky. She took a hunting rifle from her husband Gary's collection, a man who loved hunting and collecting firearms. She then returned to her bedroom, where her husband lay peacefully asleep, raised the gun, and shot him in the back of his head, leaving his lifeless body sprawled on the bed. This isn't a fictional horror story. It's a shocking reality that occurred in the Bentley family's life. Tasha Bentley, a former nurse and mother of a young child, committed a cold and brutal murder against her husband Gary, a man who loved her and trusted her. But what was the motive behind this crime? How did the police uncover the truth? And what was Tasha's fate after her confession? In this video, we will tell you the story of Tasha Bentley, the criminal who killed her husband for money and betrayal. We will delve into the gripping details of the crime, the investigations, trials, and the punishment that followed. Using reliable sources and first-hand testimonies, we'll show you how Tasha transformed from an angel into a merciless killer. Let's begin. Gary Bentley was an electrician working for a company in Kentucky. He was a simple, friendly, and kind-hearted man who loved his family and friends and enjoyed hunting and collecting weapons. He married Tasha Bentley in September 2012 after 6 years of dating. Tasha, who worked as a nurse, was beautiful, ambitious, and liked to appear well-groomed, often more assertive than her husband. They had one son, born about 3 months after their wedding. The couple seemed to be living a happy and quiet life in their home in Campbellsburg, loving each other and planning for the future. But behind this idyllic image, there were problems and secrets that threatened the stability of their relationship. In 2016, the couple looked forward to spending a relaxing holiday in Jamaica with close friends. But what was meant to be a time of fun and relaxation turned into a nightmare. Gary overheard Tasha on the phone with her boss, who threatened to fire her if she didn't improve her work performance. Shocked and worried, Gary tried to comfort her, but she refused to talk to him and accused him of not understanding her problems or supporting her. The arguments began to escalate, and the trip turned into nothing but shouting and fighting. As soon as they returned home, Tasha's fears came true. She lost her job. She could have looked for a new opportunity, but chose instead to stay home, brooding and angry. She blamed Gary for everything and avoided any communication with him. Gary felt frustrated and sad, making repeated attempts to repair their relationship, but all his efforts failed. That same year, Tasha hatched a wicked plan to get money. She called Gary's father, Gerard, claiming her car had broken down in a remote area and she needed his help. Gerard agreed to meet her there, but when he arrived, he found her car in flames, with firefighters trying to extinguish it. When he asked her what had happened, she told him a stranger had set her car on fire and that she was lucky to be alive. Gerard was suspicious of her story, as this wasn't the first time such an incident had occurred, and he suspected she was deliberately burning her cars to claim insurance. A year after their disastrous trip to Jamaica, Gary and Tasha's marriage was on the brink of collapse. Tasha was living a double life, cheating on her husband with another man while lying to Gary, telling him she was working hard. She spent long hours away from home, avoided family outings, constantly used her phone, and deleted all her secret messages and calls. Gary didn't notice any of this. He was deeply in love with his wife, convinced that she loved him back, and ignored all the warning signs that friends and family pointed out. He thought Tasha was going through a tough time due to losing her job, and believed he needed to be supportive and understanding. On December 10th, 2017, Tasha called Gary's father, Gerard, saying in a trembling voice that she was worried about his son. She told him she'd tried calling Gary several times, but his phone was off. She said she had returned home to find the garage door open, fearing a burglar or killer might be in the house, and asked Gerard to come quickly and bring a weapon. Gerard agreed, took his gun, and rushed to their home. Entering through the garage, he cautiously approached Gary's bedroom, opened the door, and was horrified by what he saw. Gary lay dead on the bed, a bullet wound in his head. Gerard stumbled out of the room, screaming and crying, and called the police to report his son's murder. When the police arrived, they found Gary's body covered with a blanket, his face turned away from the door, and a bullet casing on the bed. Gary's gun cabinet was open, with several firearms missing. There were no signs of forced entry or theft in the house. From the beginning, investigators were sure that the killer was someone close to the family, as neighbors hadn't seen or heard anything suspicious, and they believed Gary's dogs knew the perpetrator well enough not to bark, which would have alerted Gary before his death. During the investigation, Tasha claimed she had seen her husband that morning before he left for hunting, and said she tried to contact him multiple times during the day, but received no response. She mentioned she had visited friends' homes later that day. When asked if Kevin, a friend, could be a suspect, she slyly suggested there had been a dispute between Kevin and Gary during their Jamaica trip due to alcohol, with Gary throwing a drink in Kevin's face. However, after investigating Kevin, it was clear he had an alibi, and he was removed from the list of suspects. Initially, Tasha appeared as a grieving and shocked wife, with no apparent evidence linking her to the crime. But soon, suspicious details began to emerge. On December 11th, Gerard, Gary's father, contacted the police and informed them that Tasha's friend, Amy, had critical information to share. Amy said she tried calling Tasha on the day of Gary's death but received no answer at first, assuming it was due to Tasha's grief. Later, Tasha called back and briefly talked about Gary's funeral arrangements. To Amy's surprise, Tasha mentioned she wouldn't attend the funeral, a statement that shocked Amy and made her suspect that Tasha was involved in Gary's death and hiding something. Amy decided to inform the police, revealing that Tasha had been in a relationship with a co-worker named Anthony and had planned to leave Gary to live with her lover. Gerard and Amy also disclosed that Tasha and Gary had prepared a life insurance policy worth $1 million. Gerard mentioned that Gary had been reluctant about the policy, feeling it was unnecessary given their stable financial situation, but Tasha wanted it. On a cold December day, Tasha entered the police station with hesitant steps, aware of her involvement in a horrific crime, yet hoping to escape punishment. They questioned her about Anthony, the man she had cheated with. At first, she pretended they were merely colleagues, but soon the truth came out. She admitted that she loved him and had been planning to run away with him after collecting the $1 million life insurance policy on her husband. However, the police were not naive. They had solid evidence pointing to Tasha as the prime suspect. There was no one else who would benefit from Gary's death, and there were only two options. Either she had pulled the trigger while he slept, or she had hired a hitman to do it. The investigators pressured Tasha for hours, trying to break her resolve, and warned her that she would lose custody of her son if she didn't confess. Finally, Tasha surrendered and admitted to murdering her husband. She claimed she did it for her love for Anthony and to protect her son from an abusive husband. As for Anthony, he denied any involvement in the crime, asserting that he was unaware of Tasha's plans to kill her husband. Investigations showed that he was in another city on the day of the murder, leading to his and his sister's exclusion from the list of suspects. In July 2019, Tasha Bentley's trial began in a Kentucky court, with the prosecution demanding the death penalty, arguing that she had killed her husband out of greed and betrayal without showing any remorse. The defense, however, tried to prove her innocence, claiming she was a victim of an abusive husband and had no motive to kill him. During the trial, testimonies were heard from Gary and Tasha's friends and relatives, along with forensic and firearms experts. The court also reviewed photos and videos from the crime scene and text messages and emails between Tasha and her lover. After 7 days, the jury reached a verdict. Tasha Bentley was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 50 years in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a sentence short of death, but still a severe punishment for her crime. This is the story of Tasha Bentley, a woman who appeared angelic on the outside but was a devil within. She betrayed her husband and ended his life for money and infidelity. This crime will not be forgiven by the law nor by the conscience. That's all for today. Thank you, dear friends, for watching this video.